No, Joe. As soon as the technical glitch is resolved, we'll begin with the prelude. Thanks to Halloween trickery, we lost some connection that we had before the service began. They're checking it out. Gremlins, somebody has offered. We see now, but we don't hear. The challenge is from our prelude recording, we go immediately into another recording, and I think we're about to have to jettison the recordings and go without and move forward. So, Joe, would you ring the bell? And let's a cappella. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning and welcome, and we are glad you are here with us today. My name is Joe Moran. I'm one of the worship associates at this church. Most of you know that we're between music directors, and until we find a new church musician to join our staff, we'll be having recorded music, hopefully, some Sundays, and guest musicians when we can arrange it. Today, we're replaying music from earlier services and trying to fit it in the Halloween theme. If you know church musicians who might be possibilities for the Toledo Unitarians music director, please make them aware that we are searching. Music isn't the only category for our Sunday service needs. Are you interested in how to make television? We need tech and production crew members, and no experience is necessary for this. Our loyal production lead, Walter McGee, will provide training for free. Today, we're short-staffed, so he's doing double duty at the tech consoles and on cameras. Please help us provide our live streams. And one more call for Sunday volunteers. Would you like to be a service associate like myself? Helping the services to happen by helping the minister and giving this welcome, some readings and sometimes other assistance. Please contact our office or Reverend Tim if you have an interest. If you'd like to use an assisted listening device to help with hearing our public address system during services, we're now broadcasting on FM 90.7, and we have a couple of small radios with headphones available. We're still trying to develop better ways for assisted listening, and if you want to try the system out or have suggestions, again, please contact Reverend Tim. This weekend and continuing today, we've been considering our next capital campaign, which helps the church with major projects and expenses. For example, from the last capital campaign, we used proceeds to repave part of the parking lot, improve the lighting in this sanctuary, and install solar panels on the roof, among other improvements. Consultant Barry Finkelstein of Stewardship for Us is here today, working with our congregation to explore how we might hold and time another capital campaign. He'll be speaking briefly later in the service, and after the service, he'll be at an open forum sharing his observations, answering questions, and perhaps making some recommendations. We'll also have pizza. Please come and give your input. We're in asking for money mode right now with the capital campaign planning and our stewardship drive underway, and we want your participation because this is about more than funding. It's helping the Toledo Unitarians, us, to have a future. While we have money on our minds, I'll point out that our holiday poinsettia and resale is in progress. And there's an order form in the back of the order of the service. And you who are watching, if you don't get our emails and link from there, please contact the church office for information if you'd like to purchase poinsettias and wreaths through First Unitarian. Orders are due by Sunday, November 6th. That's next week. And you'll receive the poinsettias and wreaths in time for Christmas. Monthly gathering of our nitwits and fiberwork orphans. People will be coming Saturday from noon to 4:30 p.m. Please remember to bring a lunch and a drink, and masks are required. For more information, see Carla Logan Mercer or Carrie Baum.
Among the points for meditation and focus today, we keep on our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits, both the neighborliness of Halloween, which is tomorrow, and the safety of people going door to door and to parties. May the treats be sweet. For those who celebrate, we also know that All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, called by some Dia de los Muertos, are also important days. And we remember the dead always, not just according to schedule, for that is how both grief and joy are. We hold closely the continuing Russian invasion of Ukraine. We side with the Ukrainians who must fight for their home, and we feel for the Russians wronged by their own government in this attempt at conquest of a neighbor. It's 1 week and 2 days till Election Day. Early voting has begun. If you have the right to vote, you the vote, and consider our liberal religious values as you ponder candidates and issues and mark your ballot. And may the life-threatening conflicts of current American political life be resolved safely and democratically. In our own lives and those of friends and family, there are health, relations, financial, and other challenges, including celebrating new lives and mourning deaths. We've learned that Barbara Cosgrove is in St. Anne's Hospital and will be released to a rehab facility. It's hoped early in the week. We have other members with health concerns as well. Let's keep them in our minds, on our hearts, with our spirits. One reason we join in religious gatherings is to realize these common links. May we have compassion for all.
I now share these opening words. Welcome to All Manner of Creatures by Christian Schmidt. No matter who or what you are welcome here. Let's be clear. Here we welcome goblins and ghouls, saints and sinners, angels and devils, zombies and werewolves, vampires and witches. We welcome princes, princesses and princes, paupers, farmhands, aliens, astronauts, robots and cyborgs, firefighters and police officers, nurses and doctors, cowboys, cowgirls, cowfolk of all variety. We welcome Superman, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, Batman, Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Thor. Indeed, we welcome both superheroes and superstars. In short, we welcome people, monsters, and all their manner of creature. Here we welcome you and all of you and all of who you are. Welcome. Let us begin.
And our chalice lighting words come from Spider-Man, Green Lantern, and the Human Torch. And these are words compiled by Cynthia Landrum. Mindful that with great power comes great responsibility, we light this chalice in the hopes that in brightest day, in blackest night, our faith will flame on. Please join me in reciting the covenant of this congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And if our sound recording glitch has been resolved, we can sing our opening hymn, number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do. Let's try for music. And if you'd like to do,
you got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing. Oh Lord, you got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you've got to dance. Oh Lord, you've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you've got to laugh. Oh Lord, you've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you've got to shout. Oh Lord, you've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do. Oh Lord, you've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do.
Good morning. Before we begin, I'd like to invite all of my little friends to come up to the front if that would be helpful, if it would be easier to see. What do we call this? Jack-o'-lantern. Everybody's heard of them, right? Probably everybody's made one. Does anybody know where Jack comes from? What is his origin story? There are a few different ones, but the one we're going to talk about today is from an old English folk tale. And in that folk tale, Jack is a pixie. Who knows what a pixie is? Yeah, sort of. A pixie is like a fairy, but smaller. So, Jack was a pixie who carried a lantern. Jack of the Lantern. Jack-o'-lantern. And in the story, Jack's lantern was a piece of coal that he carried around in a carved out turnip. And because we live in the United States where turnips aren't quite so big, we carry our light in a carved out pumpkin. Has anybody ever heard of Jack the Lantern's partner? He's got a friend. Tishy says she's heard of her. Her name, she's called the Queen of the Pixies. And it is a real tragedy that her history has not come to our country the way that Jack's has. Her name is Joan, and she carried a torch. So, what do you think her name is? What do people call her? Joan the Torch? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Let me turn around for a second here. Thank you. Unfortunately, Joan's torch was lit by a little wad of straw that was set on fire. So they called her Joan the Wad. Moment of silence for poor Joan, who lost the name lottery. Joan, like Jack, was a pixie. And the reason Joan is such a great character is because she was very impulsive and totally unpredictable. Joan was known for being helpful sometimes. In these old-timey English stories, there would always be a traveler who got lost in the woods. And if you have ever read a fairy tale, you know that there is no greater danger on earth than the old-timey fairy tale woods. Think about Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, Merida, Goldilocks, Belle, Rapunzel. They all come to trouble in the woods. So these travelers would get lost in the woods and be unable to find their way out. And the only hope they had was to call upon Joan the Wad and her torch. And they would use this little rhyme, which I imagine actually rhymes if you have a British accent. They would say, Jack the Lantern, Joan the Wad, who tickled the maid and made her mad, light me home, the weather's bad. What that meant is, hey, Joan, with your lantern, who pinched the girl and made her mad. It's dark, I can't see, light my way home for me. When Joan was called on like this, she would always appear. If she was in a good mood, she'd take her torch and show people the way out of the woods. If she was not, she would take her torch and lead them deeper and deeper into the woods, and then she would just leave them there. Which, again, in stories, is the most dangerous place you can be. So you imagine that before Joan leaves, she says to these people, bye-bye, good luck, see you later, maybe. And then probably the people in these stories would get cooked by witches or chomped by wolves. So clearly, Joan was not exactly one of the good guys. On the other hand, the old-timey English people had another rhyme that said, good fortune will nod if you carry upon you Joan the Wad. Even today, in a city in England called Cornwall, people put little sculptures of Joan on their front doors or somewhere else around their house to bring them good luck. So was Joan good luck or was she bad luck? Was she good or was she bad? What do you think? Even though Joan herself tragically is not really a part of our Halloweens here, I think her strange spirit still seeps into our celebrations because our Halloweens here are fun and silly and prankish, and sometimes they are just a tiny bit terrifying. So open up your home and your heart to Joan because she needs the love. She needs to be a character that we know again. Let her become part of your Halloween. If you make her happy, maybe she'll bring you good luck. If you don't make her happy, I guess we'll see you later, maybe.
And the kids and the adult helpers and our director of lifelong learning all leave now for a little Halloween party. Your party is here. And do we have recorded music for this segment? Now let us pause for a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. While in our circles there are people who are happy and at peace, there are also people who suffer, who are troubled or in trouble, who come seeking solace. None of us can be entirely satisfied, but we can be good to one another. We can help each other. We can think of the stranger who needs help, and we can provide aid to those close to us and to distant people. In the societies we inherit, those we build, and those we envision, may we honor our fellow people and act for them as we would have them act for us. Let this religious community be a place where love and spiritual comfort are abundant. We also think of those who have other faiths, and we share in their prayers. We think of those who love us and those whom we love. We remember that there are people here in this room, in this city, region, state, nation, and throughout the world who are ill, who are in pain, who need relief. There are people grieving losses that came naturally and that were a result of violence, one-on-one and nation against nation. There are also people among us who have great joy. May we remember that none of us is without suffering. May we be with those who mourn, and may we hope that all of us also experience ecstasy, that we live the full spectrum of human existence. We think of many things in our persons and in our nation and world that need change. And we also think of things we'd like to stay the same, realizing that nothing remains frozen in time. For decisions from the personal ones to politics and government and elections to societal direction, may we choose with wisdom and hope. For those who have concerns about health, let us be with them. For people in trouble, may we be of help. For those who worry, let us ease their minds. And for those who have wonderful news, may we share good tidings. We depend on each other. Remember that giving and taking are essential to human society, and may we be on each end with grace and honor. With this being the eve of Halloween, many children have a positive experience. May children have a positive experience, having the gentle frights of Halloween and calming themselves with candy. And after that night, we'll remember saints' souls, then start the path to end of year holidays. In this upcoming minute of silence, let us all ponder the sorrows and the needs we have in our lives, as well as the celebrations and other joys. And let us remember those we love, those who grieve, and those who need. Know that your prayer, your meditation, your contemplation is shared by those of us here and by many people in congregations all over the world. We are part of the earth and of the universe, and there is an interconnectedness greater than we can yet comprehend. May we help one another. Let's observe 1 minute of silence. Amen.
set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. I have this reading, Samuel Johnson, as quoted by James Boswell. It is wonderful that 5,000 years have now elapsed since the creation of the world, and still it is undecided whether or not there has ever been an instance of the spirit of any person appearing after their death. All argument is against it, but all belief is for it.
Many of you know of the amazing Randy, who had been a magician, became a professional skeptic, challenging claims of the supernatural and exposing some claims of being scientific as only pseudo. He was 92 years old when he died in 2020. He hasn't been in any type of personal contact since, as far as I know. The amazing Randy, through his James Randi Educational Foundation, had on the table a $1 million paranormal challenge from 1964, when it was $1,000, before some people's and organizations' funding got it to $1 million, through 2015. And the money would be given to any applicant who could show, under test conditions that both the applicant and the foundation would agree to, evidence of the paranormal or the supernatural or a power or event based in the occult. More than 1,000 people applied through the years, and none were successful. Wikipedia tells me that Randy has said that few unsuccessful applicants ever seriously considered that their failure to perform might be due to the non-existence of the power they believe they possess. Like Samuel Johnson had said so many years before, nobody could prove an instance of the spirit of any person appearing after death. No ghosts were seen, but that didn't interfere with their belief. Harry Houdini, probably the most famous magician and escape artist, had promised his wife that he would contact her after his death, and came up with a code so she would know it was him. She tried having seances on his death anniversary for 10 years and never got a response. Again, no ghosts. I guess I ought to qualify that to say that no spirits of the dead were able to make something happen that would be verifiable by the people assembled. Because again, like Johnson said, we want to believe in ghosts. And trying every year to have a ghost appear makes me think of a passage from Shakespeare. In Henry IV, Part 1, Glendower says, "I can call spirits from the very deep." Hotspur replies, "Why, so can I, or so can any man. But will they come when you do call for them?" We don't have evidence of ghosts, but we want them. Ghost stories can give us a kind of comfort, can't they? Safe scariness in a way. And they're really popular right now. In the lead up to Halloween, consider this recent article from the Washington Post: how the Travel Channel became the Ghost Channel. The opening paragraphs: The episode has all the glitz you'd expect from a travel show about Los Angeles. A sparkling skyline, a classic film industry location, a Spanish revival mansion, over-the-top characters, also ghosts. That house is a containment chamber for the souls of victims, souls of killers, says Zach Bagans, host and most intense star of Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, a long-running hit on a network that once aired shows such as Hotel Impossible, Baggage Battles, and Bikinis and Boardwalks. When you turn on the Travel Channel these days, there will almost inevitably be ghosts or other supernatural phenomena, mythical creatures, or famous mysteries. It's no surprise that the executive who oversees the network is also in charge of paranormal streaming content. And from the Blade this week, Toledo couple collects haunted objects. Dennis and Maggie Hagan work at a local hospital, but they have a side gig in the haunted in what some call ghostly possession. They have acquired and keep in their basement a number of artifacts, to use a kind of technical term, that have ties to people using them to try for some supernatural result. A Bible used in an exorcism, a doll said to contain a demon, and many other things. The Hagans use their own precautions to keep the so-called hauntings from being visited on themselves. They put a cross blessed by an exorcist on a doll's neck. They have holy relics on the basement door. And reporter Jason Weber wrote, Dennis Hagan instructs everyone who leaves the room to loudly and emphatically declare that no spirits are to follow them out of the room. And Weber added, I guess in his objective journalism, this reporter was so creeped out that he washed his hands with holy water upon leaving the room. And the Hagans have a TikTok channel, want to open a museum to show their possessions, and produce paranormal related videos. To make a career out of their hobby that's related to horror, to their exploration of the spiritual. And also, I noticed in the Blade today, there's a story about somehow calling up the ghost of Millie Benson, author of the Nancy Drew mysteries, the original author of Nancy Drew mysteries, who was a very long time reporter for the Blade, supposedly haunting the Blade building itself. Some of you know that I used to work at TV Guide magazine. The organization chart group that I was part of would occasionally have a field trip day type of bonding where we would all go someplace together. One of those was intended to be the taping of a television show, Crossing Over with John Edward. John Edward uses books and TV to show his psychic mediumship, claiming to be a person who can contact the dead and share their thoughts with living people who had been close to them. When the producers learned that a group from TV Guide would be in the audience, for some reason, that day's taping was canceled. I guess the media, even entertainment journalists, interferes with the medium's vibe. Our close contact with the dead isn't just a pop culture phenomenon, whether the stories are real or are conjured through tricks and behind the scenes research. There's plenty of history, including relatively recent religious association. The exploration of ghost and spirit, which includes assumptions of life beyond, brings us to spiritualism, a religious approach to this question of whether there's an earthly aspect of the dead that remains after people have passed away, transitioned, died, whatever you want to call it. There's a belief that spiritualism isn't just within or somehow communally human, but it's tangible in a way, a reality that spirits have matter, sometimes claimed to be ectoplasm by those situated in spiritualist ways, and aren't just specters of the imagination, if they're even that. If there's a difference between ghost and spirit, spirit, when it comes to human life, as we know, spirit is much larger and could even be an unidentified presence. May the force be with you. And could even singly be with many or all people. That difference between ghost and spirit might be marked at a religious interest and pursuit rather than an interest in stories and stuff, in safe scariness, in curiosity about the unknown. That religious interest might be well illustrated in the spiritualist church. The spiritualist church was at its height in the 19th century. It was related in a way to our universalist history and ancestry, as both churches had their larger popularity at about the same time. Spiritualism at its simplest, John B. Busher wrote in his 2004 book, The Other Side of Salvation, published by the Unitarian Universalist Association's Skinner House books, was the belief in a simultaneously wondrous and quotidian or commonplace conversation with the dead. It seemed to require walking a course between blind faith and blind skepticism about matters of spirit, he continued. People from every denomination and from no denomination, and even those who were explicitly anti religious, became spiritualists. Universalists, however, were quite disproportionately drawn to this belief, and no denomination lost more of its leaders to it. Spiritualism presented a serious and sustained challenge to the denomination, capturing the interest of many of its clergy and members. And this was often not a mere hobby, but a profound reordering of individuals' understanding of God's providence, of human destiny after death, and of the relationship between heaven and earth. Busher also pointed out that people wanted a connection to some beyond so much that they assigned credibility that wasn't justified. Many saw spiritualism as a rejection of superstition and supernaturalism and an endorsement of the universal application of natural law and evolution, even to the afterlife, he wrote. Moreover, it provided a new area in which to conduct empirical experimentation. As a philosophy, spiritualism was generally undogmatic, attentive to new revelations, and respectful of the individual imagination and judgment. As such, it found many sympathizers not only in universalism, but also in Unitarianism, which was similarly non-creedal. Busher stated that spiritualism coursed through the heavens of the 19th century like a comet, burning brightly, reaching its zenith, and then falling back into the dark below the horizon. 5 decades after it began, almost no chronicler regarded spiritualism as a movement of any real significance in the course of human progress. But in its heyday, many people believed that it illuminated the warring claims of religion and science, or spirit and matter, solving one of the great questions of the age. Does the infatuation with spiritualism of our Universalist and Unitarian ancestors have any parallel to the development of our denomination today? I don't know, but we've made sure our pluralist umbrella is open. So those who have other interests don't have to leave our church to explore. And those interested in ghostly ways, even if we institutionally don't give much room for their version of it, can bring their experiences to us, and we can be open with dignity, if not for all of belief, to their spiritual expression. That history from Universalism and Unitarianism, our being seekers and sometimes finding, has made it more comfortable in opening Unitarian Universalism for pagans, for practitioners of earth centered spirituality, and even for New Age people. Plus, we should recognize that's also a way for us to try to deal with grief, with loss, with love for those who aren't with us anymore. We Unitarian Universalists haven't been the best in our relationship with death, though we do get good comments about the ways we have memorial services and funerals focused on the person rather than some afterlife reward. We know that Unitarian Universalism and spiritualism isn't just from the past 200 or so years. You realize that a fascination with ghosts and spirits has been around as long as humans have been, don't you? We people have a need to be conversant with death and are hopeful that our lives are meaningful even from our positions as one person among now 8 billion. We have Toledo Unitarians who situate themselves firmly in science and reason and say ghosts don't exist and spirit is a human condition, whether individual or somehow communally felt in a way we don't yet have an explanation for. But we also have Toledo Unitarian pagans who do look at what they call the veil separating our existence from a mystery and mysticism. And they try to maintain some connection with those who have died, with what some call the spirit world. Some of our Unitarian Universalists, even under this roof, figuratively accompany the dead. In Paradise Lost, John Milton wrote, "Millions of spiritual creatures walk the earth, unseen both when we wake and when we sleep. Not seen, but sometimes we attribute feelings to spiritual creatures, don't we? We don't have a single answer to questions about life and death, much less about ghost and spirit. We don't know the definitive. What we do know is that, so far at least, we all will die at some time. We don't know what happens after that. It could be some type of afterlife, as some believe, or our life and thoughts could be completely gone, as others think. Or whatever the middle way is, we'll take it. While we're alive, we're comforted by the love we've had from people in our lives who are now dead. And we remember and often grieve that they aren't with us anymore, except in memory, story, and physical things they left behind, ranging from writing and possessions to their own families and loved ones. We want to know that comfort and perhaps be that comfort if our death is a crossing over. And we wonder what comes next, even on earth when we're no longer a part of it. We don't have answers always. We will continue to question. That's life. And that's a certainty when it comes to death. How can we be here, then not? Do we go on? Or is that really the end? Will we become ghosts, individual spirits, or part of a great spirit? There's one way to find out, but it's best if we live full lives first, isn't it? If part of that is trying in some way to relate to ghost and spirit while we live, may it be so. Fact and fiction can coexist and intertwine with ghost and spirit, with grief, with the question of God. Halloween hauntings are one way of showing the interwoven nature of knowledge and mystery for children, for adults, for society. On Halloween, may your tricks be few and your treats numerous. So be it. And now I want to take a moment to speak of stewardship. We're in the middle of our annual pledge campaign. Most of you have received a mailing with a new pledge form, and we ask that you turn it in as soon as possible so we can begin to figure out our budget and do the next steps. If you have not received a mailing, there could be another one following up. We're still looking at mailing lists to figure some things out. And as well, there are copies of the form available at the stewardship table. Rich, did you have a question? And then there are forms in the office as well. So if you're ready to make a pledge and you don't have a form, please contact us and get one. That's enough of stewardship today. But next, we want to move to some words about capital campaign and a little continuation of the sermon in some way by inviting Barry Finkelstein up here to share some words. Barry.
Let's see how we make this work.
There you go.
That looks good. Maybe a little higher. Eyes are not what they used to be. Oh, let's see how I get rid of that. All right. Well, thank you, Tim. So, Halloween, ghosts, stewardship. Could there be a better Sunday to be back here with you? And Halloween reminds me of this quite a bit. And that's 100% due to my two granddaughters, Ainsley and Isla, who are 7 and 4. Now, many people told me that how great it is to be a grandparent, but I don't think anyone really talked about that it would provide, told me that it would provide opportunities to relive my childhood, but that is certainly what's happening, and maybe that's just me. But in any case, it's wonderful to be here with you today. So spirit, I wanted to talk a little bit about spirit. What does spirit mean to Unitarian Universalists? I'll switch from spirit to capital campaigns for just a second and then come back to it. You knew I was going to talk about capital campaigns, right? Now, I have worked on around 25 capital campaigns, including your campaign from about 15 years ago, one of my first, 25 Unitarian Universalist capital campaigns, and I've come to see them as truly magical. When they are successful, which is really nearly always, since we UUs do pretty well with capital campaigns, they bring our communities together in a profound way. They encourage universal participation, they generate energy and enthusiasm, they focus on the future generations, and future hopes and dreams, and they provide an outlet for generosity and philanthropy. And the bottom line is they help us build and rebuild our beloved church communities. So I talk about all that. I talk about the magic. But now, today, after hearing from Reverend Tim, I'm also going to talk about spirit when I talk about capital campaigns, some new vocabulary. Now, I've seen the way capital campaigns inspire us, and they deepen our individual and collective spirits. And I love that Reverend Tim introduced the notion of spirits and ghosts and our history of Unitarian Universalist noodling about the great questions of life and death. And now, for a brief digression, I have a question for you. Have any of you heard of your MAPA? I didn't think so. So it's not a new form of large sea mammal, which is what it sounds like to me. But really, it's a wonderful, a wonderful Unitarian Universalist acronym. Don't we just love acronyms? And it stands for the Unitarian Universalist Retired Ministers and Partners Association, of which my retired minister wife and I are members, new members. And the reason I bring this up is in the spirit of synchronicity. Earlier this week, I attended a URMAPA conference, which was all about death and spirit. Who knew? And among the many takeaways was the notion that when you think about death, we are really thinking about life in the here and now, and how that can help us achieve a better death. So I kind of like that. Now, for me, life in the here and now is indeed about spirit, the spirit that lives in each of us and in the spaces between us when the magic happens. The spirit we bring to enterprises that we are passionate about. The spirit we bring to our important relationships. The spirit I see alive and growing in my granddaughters. And the spirit that I see here at the First Unitarian Church of Toledo. And of course, the spirit that comes alive with the magic of capital campaigns. Now, I was pretty sure that spirit and inspire and inspiration all come from the same root. So I decided to check this out on the internet and promptly went down the usual rabbit hole of many paths and lots of time wasted last night, leading to slightly different roots. But the consensus was indeed that they come from the same root, although there was not agreement on what that root might be. But the one that I liked the best was spiritus. I assume that's how you pronounce it, the Latin spiritus, or breath. And to be inspired is to breathe in life, to breathe in all that is good, to breathe in love. So I ask you to imagine each of you and all of you together coming out of the pandemic and the other stresses and challenges of these past couple of years, and breathing in new life and new spirit to this wonderful congregation. New life and new spirit to this building, to this sanctuary, making it really and totally reflect your UU values like accessibility and inclusion of all who choose to come and worship with us. New life and spirit to our relationships with one another and with this UU faith that we so love. The capital campaign you are contemplating will give you that chance, the chance to breathe in life together, breathe in spirit together, breathe in possibilities together, breathe in commitment to the future generations who will love and appreciate what you do here in the here and now for this church, just as you love and appreciate those who came before you. Now, I used the word together quite a bit just now, and that's because the magic of a Unitarian Universalist capital campaign, your upcoming campaign, I hope here in Toledo, needs all of you to play a role. And not just to contribute money, important though that is, but at least as important is to participate in creating and sustaining the energy and the momentum, yea, the spirit of the campaign as it evolves. A capital campaign is one of the few opportunities for really everyone to play a part. Success comes when we build momentum, starting with the process to decide on the priorities to be funded. And of course, this is the fun part, dreaming of what's possible, and continuing to help communicate about the campaign, attend events, parties, have fun together, to engage with one another, and thinking deeply about your commitment to this wonderful church and how that translates into the most generous financial commitment that you can make. And then finally, celebrating what you have accomplished together. So if you remember only two things, it would be spirit. When the Spirit says do, as we sang, bring your spirit and your inspiration to inspire the First Unitarian Church of Toledo and its capital campaign So spirit is one, and the second is together. We can only do this if we do this together. So let's try something right now. Let me invite you to take a deep breath all together. So spirited together right now, take a deep breath and imagine the magic to come. May it be so. And please join me afterwards. I'll talk some more, less spiritual and more practical about how you can go forward with this capital campaign.
So we now come to the offering portion of our service, and there'll probably be a slide that will be shown on the many ways that we can contribute to the ongoing support mission of this church. You can go to uutoledo.org, as you can see on your screen, hopefully, click on Give, and then click on Online Giving. You can also reach us and send checks to First Unitarian Church of Toledo at our address 3205 Glendale, Toledo 43614. You will find in your hymnal racks in front of you an envelope like this. And this also talks, or at least has several different ways: annual pledge, capital campaign, special collection, and other kinds of donations. So we thank you for your ongoing support of this church. We look forward to your continued support, both through your pledges and through the capital campaign.
So I chose this postlude today because I find it fun to play. I did a little research. I couldn't find anything sacred or spiritual about it. But I will tell you this, there are many different versions of this song, Buffalo Gals. There's an Alabama version, there's a Kentucky version, there's a New York version. So it is part of a living tradition.
So you might have heard Joe speak at the beginning of the service that our music was chosen because of the Halloween connection, pretty much trying to reach that. So you're wondering how this has a Halloween connection? Well, there are two reasons. One is that the first Halloween merchandise I saw this year, probably back in July, was at Costco and it was banjo playing skeletons. The second is, as David Strickler already knows, and he has to suffer with this, the banjo is just a scary instrument to some people. Let me tell you what's coming soon. Next week, our spiritual forum at 9:45 a.m. on Sunday, we're going to welcome Toledo City Council member Cassandra McPherson. And then the 11 a.m. service is Are We the Church of Love? It's on the recently released draft of the Unitarian Universalist Association Article 2 Study Commission's proposed update of the part of our denominational bylaws that list our 7 principles and 6 sources. That will be my 26th consecutive Sunday up here on the platform, half a year. Then I'll be away for a week, and Melissa Jeter will preach on November 13th. And while we're on consecutive Sundays, I want to give sincere gratitude to Walter McGee, who is the head of our production team. He's been here for more than a year every Sunday trying to work out. Trying to keep us with some video, and you realize he's not even a member, but we can work on that a little bit. And now, Joe.
And please, immediately after this service, join us in Fellowship Hall, coffee hour, and an open forum with Barry. So bring your questions and thoughts about our next capital campaign and enjoy the free pizza.
Now, as we send our chalice flame into the community, may it help light the way for children to trick or treat in the dark, and for those of us fortunate to be in homes, to have a warm hearth amid the Halloween chills.